it's funny. The longer I'm in this industry, the more noble I believe it is. Just because I've personally held clients' hands through lots of different things, whether it's financial markets going crazy or their own personal life going crazy, right? With death of a
Yeah.
spouse and all those other things that happen, and navigating the client through all those different seasons, it's tremendously valuable to them. It really is.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Connected Advisor. I'm your host, Kyle Van Pelt, co-founder and CEO of Milemarker, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Scott Hanson. Scott is the co-founder and vice chair of Allworth Financial. He doesn't really need much of an introduction, but what I'd love to tell you all is that he is an outdoorsman and an endurance sports enthusiast. He loves skiing, hiking, running, and he does all of this while also building one of the most consequential RIAs in our industry. So we're excited to have a conversation with him today. Scott, thanks for taking time to come on the show.
Thank you, Kyle. It's nice to be here today.
Absolutely. So Scott, I ask every guest the same question to kick these off, and we're not going to do anything different here. I have found that everybody has their own path to this industry. Some of them are either traditional paths or untraditional. But what I've found is whether your path is traditional or untraditional, everybody had what we call a money moment. And that was a moment in your life that something kind of clicked, the light bulb went off, and it caused you to say, this is what I want to go make my career out of. So Scott, for you, what was your money moment?
I had a little tree trim business actually in junior college. My high school GPA was a 2.2, so I didn't have a lot of college options. And junior college, and I somehow figured out how to scrounge a couple of dollars to buy this tree trim business. And so I had a couple employees and stuff, and trim trees in Southern California, the Palos Verdes Peninsula. A lot of very wealthy people living up there. That was most of the people we served. And I remember one day I'm up in some guy's tree, and it was, I think, about 10 a.m., beautiful home, and he's driving out of, I guess he's going to the office at about 10 a.m., driving out in his Porsche. And I thought to myself, I need to figure out a different career path, because whatever that guy's doing seems to be working fine for him. And frankly, what I learned so much in that little tree trim business, because I came from a very modest financial background, but I learned that people with money are no different than people without money. They just figured out how to organize their life a little differently, and they put their pants on two legs at a time, just like everybody else. And so it gave me an inspiration to say, I'm going to figure out how to do something a little more significant with my life than trimming trees. And so it got me to finish up college and then go into financial services.
That's so cool. What was your first stop in the financial services business? So you decide, I'm not going to trim trees anymore. I go finish college. And then how'd you end up in the industry?
I graduated in college in 1990. And at that time, it was either you go to work for the wirehouses, which they send you back to New York and teach you how to cold call, and you don't really meet most of your clients face to face, or you go through the insurance route. So I went to work for Lincoln National Life Insurance Company. They had a office in the Bay Area that was quite financial planning focused. And they did a good job selling me, because I didn't realize I was going to be an insurance agent until I was actually employed there. And it was a great place to start. I really learned a lot through there is where I pursued my CFP and learned about financial planning. And I survived there about 2 years until I realized it just wasn't the right fit for me.
Yeah, I wonder why we have to go all the way to New York to learn how to cold call. I don't know why phones don't work in the rest of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the industry is very different today than it was back in 1990, but that's what it was back then. And I thought the insurance industry would teach me more about relationship building, and it certainly does. I mean, you learn how to sell life insurance, you can sell just about anything. So it was a good place to start.
Yeah. That leads me to something that I've asked a couple of people about, but I'm curious to get your take on it. Kind of starting career paths in our industry now. It's so different than what it was before, which you're totally right. It was like you go to a big wirehouse, they give you a phone book, and it was like, let's see if you can make it, right? You're either gonna stick or you're gonna wash out. And a lot of that was the same with insurance. But now you have all these different paths. You can come in as a planner, you can come in as an associate, an operations person. I mean, I feel like there's lots of paths in this industry for getting started.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Kyle. I think there's a shift that's going on, and I certainly welcome it. Historically, our industry was really about, if you can figure out how to hunt and land clients, you had a job in this industry. If not, I mean, maybe you had a back office job, but you certainly weren't going to be a financial advisor of sorts. And I think our industry is maturing. I mean, if you look at large law firms, large accounting firms, they go to the best schools, hire the best graduates. They don't expect these young kids to go out and be business development people. Right? I mean, they put them on teams and have them work different cases and that sort of stuff. And they learn and they invest in these young people and they build them up. And then maybe at some point in time, they're going to be business development people. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just be good CPAs, they're good attorneys, they're good consultants. And I see our industry heading that same path, which I think is really exciting because there's some great people. I mean, we've had some great financial advisors over the years that are phenomenal with people. They connect well with people. They're just, for whatever reason, they lack that ability to go out and find clients. And there's some people that are just naturally gifted. Like wherever they go, it seems like money just falls on them. And they great business development people. But what we found is just that this industry there's an opportunity for lots of different types of people, whether you're great at finding clients or whether you're just great at being a financial advisor.
I think that's dead on. And I think it's interesting to see how it's all evolving in that regard too, because I think it's making the industry much more approachable, right? I think more people now are like, oh, I can maybe go do this. And it's such a noble profession too, like helping people figure out what to do with their wealth and their money. Like you said, they're just normal people who are trying to figure out how to have an impact.
I mean, it is a noble profession. And I think a lot of young people don't really see it. There's still actors in our industry that it's just all about financial sales and selling some high priced product to people and stuff. And unfortunately, even in college students, as they're getting out of college, they bump into these other kinds of people. And so I think the industry's reputation now, it's well earned. It's bad, but I'm hoping that's changing, particularly on the financial planning side of things, the certified financial planner route. It's funny, the longer I'm in this industry, the more noble I believe it is. And just because I've personally held clients' hands through lots of different things, whether it's financial markets going crazy or their own personal life going crazy, right? With death of a spouse and all those other things that happen, and navigating the client through all those different seasons, it's tremendously valuable to them. It really is.
Yeah, it's so much more than just helping them invest their money and make sure.
No, I know. It's funny. People, if you're outside the industry, you don't quite understand. Oh, you guys help people invest money. What do you pick the best ETFs out there? I'm like, well, that's not really what it's about.
So when I think about Allworth, I think about, maybe you don't like this term, but one of the premier consolidators in the industry.
Yeah.
You all have just done an incredible job. 36 acquisitions since 2018. You've done 5 this year by my count. That's quite the pace. And we could talk about like what it takes to do all of that. That's pretty crazy. There's lots of people out there trying to consolidate firms and bring them up. But I'm curious for you, like obviously you're biased, but I would love to hear your message on what makes Allworth a great partner for these firms to come in. Why these 36 have chosen Allworth?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It's interesting. There is obviously consolidation going on in our space. And frankly, I think we were somewhat fortunate to be on the early side. We clearly weren't the first. I mean, I think Joe Duran and Focus those two kind of paved the way for the industry. But even when we got in and started doing this in 2018, I think we were at a good time. Still pretty early on in that. But I think for us, there's a couple things about Allworth. Well, one is like we've got great career paths for people that aren't business development people. So it's like we get great financial advisors that help serve our clients. We're big on building the right kind of teams around advisors. So if someone is great business development, we have got CFPs that are right there next to him or her to catch the clients as they get landed on the firm. And then we've got phenomenal ancillary support services. So we've got tax planning and tax preparation. We've got estate planning. We've got insurance. We've got all those sort of things. So it's funny. One of the firms that just joined us, this guy, he literally helped train me at Lincoln National. I think he got in the business in 1988. I was in 1990. I remember He taught some classes. And anyway, he just now joined. He was an independent firm, just joined us a couple months ago. And he's like, I had no idea how great your guys' tech. I thought I had a good technology stack and had good systems. He's like, I had no idea. And the advantage, at least with Allworth, can't speak for the other consolidators, but it's just a platform that an advisor can lean upon and all the resources and all the people with experts. And I mean, we all have a vested interest in seeing that we all do well. So we're all there to serve one another. And, it's been very, very successful. We were called Hanson McLean for a number of years, most of our history, Hanson McLean. And as we're growing and having firms join us, so many firms have their own name, Johnson Financial or whatever. And we just thought, man, it doesn't sound very collaborative or inclusive to ask someone to drop their personal name to take my personal name. So we rebranded, and I really love the term Allworth because it's all encompassing. It's really about all of our advisors, about all of our associates, and it's really about all of the wealth issues that a client deals with. And so we really have that mindset when it comes to serving our clients.
That's so cool. So would you say you kind of planted your flag on the technology side of things as a differentiator? Because I think most of these places would go and tell somebody, hey, we've got all of these different services for you. We're going to provide all the support and whatever.
Our main thing from the start was marketing. We are a marketing business that happens to be in financial services. We still think that way. The value in this industry, I mean, some people go in this space, they're great financial planners. They just want to serve their clients. That's all they really care about. And that's awesome. And it's what's fun about this industry. You can talk to 50 advisors and there's 50 different types of businesses. They're all great, right? I mean, it's what somebody wants from out of their life. But for those that want to build a business, the value is all created in finding the client, landing the client. I mean, that's where you could run a net present value on what a $2 million client's worth. I mean, it's phenomenal, right? So I think perhaps we've always viewed this as we're building a business here. Let's invest in the marketing. Let's invest in client development to bring on new clients because that's how we're going to grow the organization. And if you look at the industry, I mean, organic growth, last year, there was no organic growth in the advisory space. It's challenging, I think, for most firms. It's been challenging for us, to be frank, the last year and a half or so. But we're still growing. There's still positive growth and all that stuff on organic. But we've always focused on marketing, and that it also enables us to find great advisors that aren't good at business development, gives them a career path and that sort of thing. So, but technology is obviously important. But I wouldn't consider us a technology leader. Like we're not the first adopter on technology, but it is really kind of finding the best in class. I think we're on the forefront on marketing. I think we're maybe kind of first to try things on the marketing side. When it comes to technology, we wait till others have some success or failure in an area. And then if it's successful, then we might adopt that.
Oh man, that's really well stated. And I want to actually dive into some of the organic growth stuff a little bit, because that was the next thing I wanted to ask you about. But you said something that I want to dive into. But before we do, I think one of the interesting trends I have seen is that, kind of to my question of why have people chosen Allworth, I love the answer of marketing, because most people want to go to a place where you can help them grow. And in this industry, the single biggest way to grow is by being able to market and find the client like you're talking about. I mean, almost every firm that I see that is growing really quickly has some sort of differentiated marketing engine.
Yeah, they all do some sort of marketing or target market, a niche.
Yep.
They're doing something a little different, and they're focused on growth, which I think is big. And if you look at most advisors aren't growing, what happens is people get in this space. They're independent. Maybe they're at an LPL, or maybe they're just start a little RIA, and they have a plan to get a certain amount of clients, a certain amount of assets. And when they get there, they end up spending all their time servicing their existing clients, and there's little left for marketing. And the thing about marketing is it's proactive. I mean, everything else is reactive, right? A client calls, you got to deal with it, answer the call, or return the email, or make sure. The thing about marketing is you've got to be proactive. So like even when I first started, I carved out time every day, a couple hours every day for marketing and prospecting, and one day a week. And I wouldn't be available to clients. I wouldn't, even if the best client called, sorry, I was busy doing something else. Those advisors that have been able to maintain that kind of mindset as they've gotten busy and said, I'm going to continue to focus on marketing and then backfill my organization with people to help service those clients. Those are the ones that have the growth. But so often as people get to a level of complexity in their business, their practice, and the growth stops.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's dead on. So you said something interesting, which was, it was even tough for you all, a firm that's really, really great at the organic growth and the marketing side over the past little bit. Like, what do you think has contributed to organic growth being difficult for firms? Because I've heard that a couple times.
Well, I think so and I'm sure this is the same with some other consolidators. You take an advisor who, let's say, mid 60s, late 60s, 70, they say, I want to join up with a larger firm, whether it's Allworth or there's a handful of us, right? Some of these advisors, once they join, they really don't have a desire to continue to grow and to work, right? So it's kind of a half retirement. I mean, one of the beautiful things about this industry, we're not digging ditches, right? So it's not physically intense. And the longer we do it, the better we're getting at it. So it's pretty dang easy to do into your 60s, 70s, and 80s, I suppose, if you still have the acumen there for it. But I think what's been a challenge for us is those advisors that have joined us, sold to us, frankly, and haven't wanted to grow at all since then, since they become part of us. So we've had to be much more selective in who joins us. The other larger consolidators have all experienced the same thing. And I think as the next year or two goes on, I think some of the newer entrants into the consolidation space will realize that if you buy a firm that's not growing and an advisor that's viewing this as a retirement plan, but they have no intention of retiring right away, they want to just kind of work half time, it's going to be a challenge when it comes to organic growth.
I hadn't actually thought about that angle, but that's it. Is a lot of times you are kind of making this decision when you're sort of on the tail end of your career, and it's hard to get up and keep going, right?
Yeah, and Kyle, I mean, the ones that are successful, for those that they have a plan of retiring in 2 years or 3 years, and then we can build the plan around that, right? So we can make sure we've got a great advisor in their office. We can build from there. It's those that I think I still want to keep working, but I'm not going to work 40 hours a week, and and then they get a big check. They get a big check, and their motivation is not quite what it used to be. I think we all experienced that to some level, right? I mean, I read Elon Musk's book a few months ago, and which was a phenomenal read if for those that haven't read it. But it kind of look at a guy like that who's obviously extremely brilliant, whether you like him or not. I mean, he's incredibly brilliant, but just he's so driven. Most of us aren't wired that way. It's like we get to a certain point, like I don't know if I want to be at work that hard. Like I don't want 11 p.m. standing meetings every day on a project I'm working on. Life's about the journey for me, and I'm recording this up at Lake Tahoe, and I'll be out goofing off in the woods this afternoon. So I think it's important to have a good balance as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know this as somebody who's led clients with their wealth and everything. I mean, wealth is more than just money. You have to actually use that money to do stuff with your life as well. Listen, as driven as Elon Musk is, we've all seen the picture of him, on yachts out in the Mediterranean. So he's figuring out how to, find time to do fun stuff as well, right?
I think probably very little fun in his life. But anyway, that's another story.
So staying on the organic growth theme, you and I talked about this a little bit off mic, but I want to, bring it back in. You all ran a really successful radio show, Money Matters. You did that for 29 years.
You still do. Yeah, we're still broadcasting.
Yeah. I mean, I would just love to hear how you think that contributed to organic growth, but just what that experience was like for you as a whole.
Yeah. And I think, the terrestrial radio has changed dramatically. And it's funny because we're only on one station now, and we even talk of it's still worth it to do it. And matter of fact, our programs, our shows that we record, we have way more podcast listeners. So we design it more of a podcast format. Commercial breaks are just in post-production, and they're pretty floppy on the radio, the sound on the radio, because it's all designed for podcasts now. It was certainly helpful for us in brand building. The challenge with trying to build a brand, whether you're a small advisor or a large firm, it just takes years, huge investment. Back in the day when radio was still kind of a popular medium, it worked fantastic for us. And, frankly, we should have probably expanded much further. I mean, look at what Rick Edelman did with his business, and it was all radio back in the day. A mutual fund store, same thing, was all radio. And we were just in a couple markets, but there was a time when it was the main driver of business for us. Yeah. It's not anymore, but it was back
in the early days for sure. Do you think the podcast still contributes to growth though for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've just had our 2 millionth download on the podcast, so we have quite a few listeners. And a lot of them are do-it-yourselfers that maybe something changes in their life and they realize that maybe they should hire somebody, or they have enough money now, like maybe it's kind of a nice luxury to have. And we also find they refer their friends and stuff and they ask the best. We take live calls. We schedule ahead of time when we record. We take calls, and it's probably the most interesting part of our podcast, these various questions that people have. And so I think it's been good as far as business development, but it's also good for people to get a chance to get to know us a bit. So maybe they were referred to us by their friend, a client of the firm, or maybe they had a meeting with one of the advisors, not quite sure they should hire us or hire somebody else. And they can listen to some of the shows and give them a flavor of who we are. And just by us answering people's questions on the podcast and kind of doing the mini financial plans, they can kind of see us do a work in action. So it's been helpful as far as that has gone. And we have to give credit to Ron Carson for that, because Ron Carson, 29 years ago, we were when he first launched his, whatever he calls his consulting program. Pat McLean, my business partner, myself, and one other person, we were the first 3 clients in his program. He did a radio show back in the day in Omaha. He was talking, it was successful back then. So we came home, and my business partner, Pat McLean, started cold calling the radio stations in town, talked his way onto one of the shows, the radio stations. That's how we got started 29 years ago. So, but we still are recording it today.
That's so cool.
This podcast is brought to you by Turncast. We make game-changing content for fintech and financial services companies. Learn more at turncast.com.
Yeah, I think on your comment too about radio stuff shifting, again, love him or hate him, but I think Dave Ramsey now, it's like 70% of his stuff comes through the podcast channel versus actually listening live on radio as well. So I think just that entire...
it's changing. It's funny. I was just talking to some friends this weekend, and one guy said he'd never uses CarPlay in his car. I'm like, what are you, crazy? My buddy's like, I wouldn't buy a car that didn't have CarPlay, right? And I almost never listen to the radio anymore. It's all podcasters, whether it's a news podcast or entertainment podcast or finance podcast. It's almost all podcasts anymore.
Yeah, it's so true.
Which makes it a little more challenging. I mean, it's a little more challenging for someone who wants to try to build a marketing machine through podcasts, because it's not just creating the podcast. You need listeners.
Yeah, and discoverability is so difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many podcasts out in the market today. It's like it's incredible. But
Well, and I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole on this, but there's no like algorithm for surfacing up new podcasts to somebody, via email or something along those lines, right? It's like it's like almost all word of mouth. Like, hey, have you listened to this podcast? And it's like, no, I'll go check it out, and then maybe you like it and you subscribe or something like that. But
that's how I found almost all the podcasts I listened to. Someone referred one.
Yep.
Right. And, hey, this is interesting. I think you might like this. And I do like that.
So taking a little bit of a turn here, I'd love to talk about your time just leading Allworth, but you decided to step down voluntarily about a year ago. And some of the things that you've said in pieces that we've read or that we changed is, there's parts of the job that just sucked the life out of you. And I think a lot of the people listening to this are people who sit in seats where they're running their firms, they're running their businesses. Like, what are some of those things that were just so challenging, that you were like, man, this is not what I want to be doing anymore?
My first decade, I worked my tail off like most people do starting a business. And then in around year 2000, I went to Dan Sullivan's Strategic Coach, and I really bought into the concept of having these free days and days where, a couple main things. One is figuring out what my unique ability is, what I'm really good at, delegating everything else outside of that. And then having these kind of free days where I do stuff that not business related at all and kind of enjoy life. And I was really good at that for a long time. And then we brought in private equity in 2018, which was super grateful we did. I think it was a perfect move for us. And they were great partners and still are. But as we grew, I mean, when we took on private equity, we were about 2.5 billion or 20 some billion today. Going into a board meeting and just saying, well, I don't know the answer to that. This guy knows, or that guy knows. It wasn't quite working like it did when I was in a small organization. It's funny. I told my wife, I said, I lacked the skills to lead the company the size it was. And she says, well, you're capable of doing it. You probably just didn't want to invest the time to gain those skills. And I thought, maybe that's a fair point, right? And I'm 57 today. I don't want to retire. I mean, I hope I have another 20 years ahead of me, but the job was becoming something. It was requiring someone that's a great manager, a great operator. And I think I don't know if I really like the term entrepreneur, but I like to start things and kind of get things going and then let someone else kind of run with things. And if I look at some of my personality traits, I'm not very good at following through on things. I'm like great at getting things going and I can get people excited. And then I start losing interest. And for running a large organization, you need somebody who keeps interest and takes great interest in all the little details, because that's what's going to make a good organization. So it was about a year ago, I told the board, I said, I think it's time to bring somebody else in, a professional CEO. And we were fortunate enough to get John Bunch, who industry veteran and led lots of big organizations in the kind of retail advisory space. It was a great move. And the organization's run much better today than it was the last year or two that I was running it.
I love the self-awareness and I love the humility of all of that. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I think part of it is, it's interesting, Kyle, is I've had one long-term business partner and we've done other ventures together, and we're just really fortunate in a lot of ways. And our decision-making was quite collaborative because we would talk about things together and we would always agree before we did something, which that worked fine as a small organization. But when we got to the point we have 450 employees today, a really strong leadership team, that kind of leading by consensus just wasn't working anymore. And I think that's a bit my style. And it just wasn't fair to the organization. I could tell some of the stress that people were having because their decisions weren't being made quick enough. And that's on me. So I think just not only for our associates, or part of the organization, but I think our clients as well, just better served by bringing in somebody else. And it is a couple of years ago, I said one of the things that sets us apart is we're still led by founders and financial advisors at the helm. Now I say, you don't want a financial advisor at the helm. You need a professional CEO. But I do think it's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, that's really self-aware. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that. So I know you're still very involved at Allworth. You didn't parachute out and, like you said, go retire or anything like that, but also with some of the time given back by stepping down from what you did, like what are you focusing on now? How are you spending your time?
Yeah, I'm still a bit of a face for the organization. So, various videos we put out or other kind of little mini podcasts and stuff. I'm still kind of face the organization there. And I'm involved in some, also on the M&A, and, had meeting with some potential prospects here and there. So I do some of that and really just serving where the CEO asks for my help. That's kind of where I'm coming alongside and being a bit of more of a servant there than a leader, which is it's an interesting experience for me. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what my next 20, 30 years are going to look like work-wise. We'll see as we continue to grow and evolve as an organization. Right now, I know it's an exciting time for our team. We're we're growing really well and got great people and delivering some great things to clients. So I'm pretty excited to be part of the team. It's been fun. You know, what's interesting, Kyle, is just I started out as a financial planner at Lincoln National, right? So back then it was just go sell some financial product to somebody. It's like, what do you sell? What do you need? You know? And as I continued to evolve, then I had a small organization. I was still an individual financial planner. Well, I quit taking on new clients about 20 years ago. And then I gave up most of my clients about 15 years ago. I have a couple of relationships I still kind of work with, but I still have a financial planner on the side who does the real work. My work has really evolved. My career has really evolved over the years. And then, of course, leading a large organization with private equity partners and like real board members, you know, that was an interesting challenge and a change in my career. And I think I'm just at another chapter right now, just another change. And it's kind of fun because I see the guy delivering mail, the older person in my neighborhood, and I'm like, that'd be a tough job to do the same thing for 39 years or whatever, right? And I feel super fortunate that I've been able to have all these different experiences in my career.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that a lot. That resonates. This is a kind of a pet question for me, a curiosity question, but as you're evolving and you have these private equity partners and everybody's asking a lot from you. I mean, one of the big things that we work on at Milemarker is solving the problem of, you know, leaders like yourself. You know, it would take so long to get answers to questions that they would ask, right? The team would have to go put together these big spreadsheets. They'd have to grab data from 100 different places. And it's like so frustrating to try and get answers to simple strategic questions or to be able to be proactive with their data. So for you, I mean, how did you deal with that challenge? Did it ever get dealt with? Or was it always just kind of like slamming your head against the proverbial Excel wall and taking a long time to get answers through the data?
Earlier, I said that we were maybe not leaders in technology. We have been leaders in getting good data. We hired a data scientist 9 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So we've had a data team for a long time. And our private equity partners have been really helpful for us on making sure that we've got great data. And they've also got great teams of people. I mean, I've often said I feel like a private equity partners, it's a bunch of smart people with a checkbook and a lot of smart young people working for them. And so when we have some complex issue we're trying to get an answer to, they've got people that will roll up their sleeves and dig in and help us find answers to our questions. And so a lot of it, of course, is on, you got to have the good data to begin with. But we've been highly focused on that. And it's been an area I think we've led pretty well in. The challenge with all that, every time you look at a spreadsheet, all it tells you is what's happened historically, right? And maybe you could look at some trends, but it doesn't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. And so people that are really great, and I think a lot of people that come out of these business schools, they're really good about building these models and looking at where the trends are going to be taking things. But I think it's important also to have sometimes just a gut check. And I feel the market's heading this way. And I feel the consumer's asking something a little different than what the data is telling us. And so I think it's important to rely upon the data, but it's also important to, if you're a veteran in your space and you've got a sense that something is changing, to be able to kind of lean into that instead of just waiting to see what happens. And that's one of the dangers, I think, when you rely so heavily on data.
Sometimes we can be too data driven, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I think so.
Still has a place. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, conversations with, there's a reason people still do focus groups with consumers and that sort of thing.
So that's actually a decent segue. And one of the things I love to ask people, but you kind of said, hey, you have to be able to look and see what's coming. I love to ask guests like yourself to get out your crystal ball and kind of just give us a little bit of a prognostication for what's going to happen in the industry and where things are going.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think, if you go, let's say 20 years out, there's going to be a few very large fiduciary advisory firms. You think back to the wirehouses and the regional brokers and stuff that were 50 years ago. And now there's just a handful, right? Just a few of the large brokers left. And I think we're going to see something quite similar with the RA space. And I think one of the changes that we've also seen is 10 or 15 years ago, this kind of fee only was a big deal. And, consumers wanted fee only. I don't see that as the future, because what we find is if consumers want their advisor to help them in lots of different areas. They want to make sure their advisor's not conflicted. They want to make sure their advisors are giving them a fair deal. But our clients like the fact that we can do their tax returns. They like the fact that we can help analyze their insurance and solve their insurance. Now, our advisors don't get paid any commissions for that sort of thing because we want to make sure that they're not conflicted at all. But I think the advisory firms of the future are going to deal with lots of things. Just figuring out the different Medicare supplement policies is a big deal. And that's what all of our clients have to deal with, right? Dealing with Medicare issues further on in life and kind of the last stages of what's that going to look like as far as nursing home or whatever. I think those kind of services are going to be all part of a larger advisory firms.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts too on that, because I actually have this belief that everybody kind of started calling themselves fee only, mostly as a marketing tactic. I mean, not that they weren't fee only, but it was like, oh, this helps me differentiate out on the market. If I go tell everybody, I'm a fiduciary, I'm fee only. And then all of a sudden DOL comes along and everybody has to be a fiduciary, and being, fee-based or fee only was no longer a competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's right.
And then all of a sudden now we see firms offering a huge suite of services, right? Like you're saying, tax planning, estate planning,
That's right.
Financial planning. Like they're trying to almost look more like family offices in a lot of ways to make it work on that regard. So it sounds like you see the same trend happening, which is like, hey, the successful RIAs of the future are going to be the ones that almost look like mini family offices, or just have a big, large suite of services that clients don't have to go out to, 12 different people.
Well, that's what the consumer is asking for today. I mean, that's reality. That's what they're telling us. Like, can you help me with my taxes? Can you help me with my estate planning? And they want a one-stop shop.
By no means am I an ultra high net worth person, but, I've told people this before, it's hard enough to kind of open up to your advisor about all of these, things that you don't talk to most people about, right? How much money you earn.
I know we all do stupid stuff with our money too at times, right?
Oh, it's crazy. And then it's like, I had this experience where my advisor was like, okay, now you need to go get a will. So you got to go tell all this stuff you just told me to an estate attorney, right? And it's like, whoa, can I just tell you this stuff? And then you go talk to the other people and figure it out. It's that's good. Anything else futuristic wise, technology, anything else you want to comment on as you see where things are going industry wise?
Well, I do think that whole fee compression, I still don't see that really happening, but I do see we're having to offer more services to clients for the same fee. That's going to continue to happen. And advisors are going to need to serve more and more clients one reason, if you just look, there's not enough new people entering our space. But just with technology, the amount of clients an advisor can serve today is dramatically more than, say, 20 years ago, just because the portfolios, there's technologies basically run our portfolios for us, do all the tax loss harvesting for us, and do all kinds of great things. So if you look going down the future, advisors are going to have to serve more clients. An advisor with 100 clients or an advisor with 200 clients, I think those are the days of the past. It's going to be.
It has to be. Again, I know you're saying you got to.
There's no reason it can't be.
No. And if you look at the data, again, I know we talked about intuition a second ago, but if you look at the graphs, the search interest in financial advice over time is only going up and to the right. Like more and more people are looking for financial advice, but the number of people getting into the industry is not climbing at the same rate. So some of it's going to get picked up by technology. That's fine. But advisors are just going to have to serve more clients. They're going to have to get more efficient. They're going to have to.
And I think also, Kyle, on that is having a business approach to it. I've got a few clients that are friends, but I've certainly never said I'm going to turn my clients into my friends, or I'm going to turn my friends into clients. And so I've never spent a lot of time whining and dining clients and getting to know them and going to their kids' weddings and that sort. I don't think most of these people come to me looking for another friend. I really don't. I don't think I'd like another friend. Maybe I'll go find a financial advisor so I could have another friend. For the primary responsibility for us is to do well for them as their financial advisor. If you want to become their friend, fine, but it's finding that right kind of balance of spending the time with the client so the trust is there, which is super important when life happens, so that the client follows your advice. It's having the right balance between just enough time for that trust and then being able to spend time with another client as opposed to spending hours and hours with the same individual client. And I think that's why you see these advisors that cap out at 75 or 100 clients. They spend so much time with individual clients as opposed to thinking about it from a business standpoint. I'd rather serve more clients, frankly. And look, if they're with Allworth, I know they're going to be well taken care of. There's other firms that are great firms out there, but there's a lot of lousy advisors in this space. They're inept, unethical, both. There's still a lot of them out in our industry. So I know if someone's at Allworth, they're going to be well served. So one of the reasons I'm passionate about continuing to grow the organization, there are a lot of people out there that need good financial advice and would love to be able to provide it to them.
I love that. That's the passion of a founder coming through, right? It's like, hey, we're doing it the right way.
Anyone who's been in the space for a while, they've had clients come in and they've been sold this crappy products, 18-year surrender charge, equity index annuities, or some crappy real estate thing they can't get out of. And they come in and at one point in time, they had $2 million, and now I don't know what to even tell them. I can't really help them. Everything's locked up and some garbage, and it impacts their life. Or just even through the financial crisis, or even during COVID when the markets went down. It's funny when the lockdowns happened, we started seeing the markets fall. I told our entire team, I said, we're not taking any new clients. I want 100% focus to be on clients sticking with their investment strategy. I said, I don't want anyone going to cash. And so everything we did was about focusing on communicating, guiding clients. We communicate in every different way we can imagine. We're proud that 99% of our clients didn't throw in the towel and stuck with their investment plan. Look, doing that sort of thing, it's so valuable as opposed to just caving in and doing what the client wants you to do. And you see the impact when the clients that don't follow your advice, their lives are usually, they're forever changed. When they make a mistake, they sell out in the wrong times, their lives are forever changed.
It's so true. So true.
It's not just about their net worth statement. It's about maybe them not being able to see their grandkids every year because they can't afford to travel there any longer. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's not just about having more money or a nicer car. It's about basic things in life.
Man, I just want to keep letting you go. I love it. We got you.
No, it is. I mean, that's what I get passionate about. Most of the clients we serve are kind of, they're high net worth, but they're not ultra high net worth. So maybe they have a couple $1,000,000. While we have some clients at 50 million, that's not our typical client. Most of our clients are $2 or $3 million. And the right kind of planning can mean a very respectable retirement, a great retirement. And the wrong kind of planning could be disastrous for them. And I love serving those people because we can really have an impact in their life. It's not turning someone's 50 million into 100 million. Like, I don't know what difference that's going to make in their lives, but the right kind of planning and guidance on taking someone who's worked hard, they've saved well, and helping them guide them through their retirement and having their income and whatnot to maintain the standard of living. That's highly rewarding. And I think it's of high value work. I really do.
Well stated. All right, we're going to use that as a segue into our final segment of the show. We call this the Milemarker Minute. It's a series of lightning round questions, tend to be kind of just some fun stuff, let people get to know the Scott Hanson behind Allworth a little bit more than just the financial advisor. So you ready for the Milemarker Minute?
Yes, sir.
All right. First question I love to ask people, where is one place in the world you'd love to travel that you've never traveled to before?
I traveled about everywhere I want to go. Southern Patagonia. I still haven't gone there. I want to go to Southern Patagonia.
Southern Patagonia. I love it. Do you have to wear Patagonia when you go to Patagonia? Is that a rule?
No. And I've been to Northern Patagonia. I want to go to Southern Patagonia sometime.
I love it. What is the best book you've read in the last 12 calendar months?
Switch on Your Brain.
Oh, okay. That's
I forget the name of the author.
Okay.
Switch on Your Brain.
We'll look
Elon
it up.
Musk was really good too.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains.
Yep. I love it. And then who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl in 2025?
Don't care.
Don't care. I love it.
I really don't. I don't follow football that much.
Perfect. I love it.
I usually watch the Super Bowl, but it's not, I don't pay much attention to football.
I love that answer. That's fantastic. And that's one of the reasons why we asked these. But you got through the Milemarker Minute, a couple of fun, lighthearted lightning round questions. Scott, this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate your time and your insight. Your passion really came through across the microphone here and in the video for those who are going to get to see it. So I tell a lot of people time is a gift, and I'm very thankful that you shared some of your gift with us.
We are so fortunate just to be even in this country and the opportunities we have. It's just incredible. It really is. It's an incredible place to be and super excited about our future. Not that we don't have our challenges, but we get to create our future.
Oh, what a great way to end it. That has been another episode of The Connected Advisor, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you click follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this. Go connect with Scott on the platforms that we'll put in the show notes to hear more incredible insight like this. But until next time, have a great week.